Good morning, gardening friends. I think that maybe the sun is in the wrong place to really show what's going on here, but here's the sign on the Hope Harvest Garden, which is located next to the North Star Ambulance Barn in Farmington, down by the hospital. It's a beautiful spot. It's a beautiful garden. This project is a partnership between the Cooperative Extension of the University of Maine, the Healthy Community Coalition of Greater Franklin County, and the United Way. As you can see, I'll try to get my camera in the right place here so that we can actually see the garden. Earlier, when it was cloudy, probably would have been better, and I do have some footage from earlier. My name is Rebecca Lane. Here I am. I hope I'm taking a good picture of myself. Selfies are not my strong suit. However, my name is Rebecca Lane. I'm from Strong, and I am one of the 2 Master Garden volunteers working in the community garden. Emphasis on community, people. This is for all of us, because we all need to eat. We have some beautiful onions. Probably the best growing thing in the garden right now, thanks to all the rain. But they obviously enjoyed that. The thing that our garden needs most right now is weeding, which is not always the most pleasant thing. But I'm here in the garden, barefoot, earthing, which is healthy for you, by the way. And getting the weeds out of the garden means that all the nutrients in our beautiful soil are going to grow great vegetables for us to eat. Here's Brussels sprouts, which are coming along nicely. And some people say, oh yuck, but cooked properly, they're really yummy, and they're definitely good for you. This is the summer squash and zucchini row. Coming along nicely, lots of blossoms. If I look close, I see some fruit setting. Here's a volunteer tomato from last year, because this is where the tomatoes were in last year's garden. And I'm kind of excited to see what happens and what we get for tomatoes from a plant whose seeds survived the Maine winter. There's a few more around the garden. Here's one already with blossoms on it. We have herbs, we have lettuce, we have some nasturtiums that are going to show us up some nice flowers. There's basil, oregano, parsley, borage, more volunteer tomatoes. We have some green peppers here. They like the hot and the sun, so hopefully now that things have started to dry out, these will come into their own and provide us with a little harvest there. We have greens. There's the rhubarb chard here. And then get up close so you can see it. If you come to weed, which you are welcome to do anytime, many hands make light work. 6 people in the garden for 10 minutes is an hour worth of weeding, and nobody had to work hard. But when you're working in around the plants, pull carefully. If they break off rather than uproot, that's okay too. We'll get them next time. If you want to wear gloves, that's cool. I don't mind getting my hands dirty, but some of the bigger weeds have some little unfriendly fur on them. And not that it's going to do any major harm, it's just more comfortable with gloves on. But we pulled these out. And there's another volunteer tomato. I'm going to pull him, it. Vegetables are it. They don't have a gender. Well, some of them do, but most of them don't. I'm pretty sure this is some volunteer oregano. I've kind of been pulling it because it just gets in the way, but if you harvest it and take it home to eat it, that's okay too. Anything that you do harvest, give a guesstimate or estimate or weigh what you harvested. The Healthy Community Coalition writes grants for us so that we have money for seed and fertilizer and plants, some of which in this garden were generously donated by Robin's Flower Pot. But if you come to weed, be comfortable. Sunscreen. The bugs aren't too bad. A hat. I have my hat on, I think you saw. And sunscreen. Bring water. There's a faucet over here that does not work. If you need water, there's a tap over on the ambulance building, and I'll walk over there in a little bit and show that to you. But where was I? Oh yes, rainbow chard. Those are some mixed greens in here that are coming along nicely. I believe that the United Way gang is coming later, and they may do some harvesting. Again, if you harvest, please make sure that you let us know how much you harvested. You can do that by either contacting the pantry over in the Greenwood building, contacting the Healthy Community Coalition. You can email me. My email address is rcl207@hotmail.com. Trying to figure out what the plants are in this little piece of the garden. I know we planted something in here. I believe it's spinach, and that's probably it right there. As I said, the rain hasn't been its usual beneficial self, but hopefully that will have the weather will have moderated, and we'll have some mostly days of sun and a few days of rain rather than unrelenting daily rain. The weeds, we've started a pile down here at the end of the garden. There's another pile next to the garden shed, which we'll get to in a little bit. But just put them in the pile. Eventually they'll decompose. If we get a composting affair, not affair, that's not a good word. If we get a composter or a composting system and a spot to put it here near the garden, they will all go in there. Along the fence, there is nothing that we have growing for food. There are some things, like I know this is rye, and it was planted as a cover crop once upon a time, and it reseeds itself. But along the fence, feel free to pull it all. You don't have to worry that you're going to pull up something important, because there's not anything important in the edge of the garden right now. We may change that later on, but for right now, if it's growing along the edge of the fence, pull it up. And sometimes when your equilibrium's a little bit off and you're a little bit frustrated, just come tear a few weeds out of the fence. That's a really good way to relieve some of your anxiety and frustration, which is the other awesome thing about being in the garden. Being in the garden is good for you. If you have a fitness app, it will convert your garden time to steps. I know my Fitbit does. I think it's 1.5 to 1. So for every minute I spend in the gardening, I get 1.5 steps or something like that. I'd have to look it up again to see. But I get more steps for my garden time. And I like that. It's good for your heart. It's awesome for your stress levels. Because even if you just simply sit and look at the garden, or come inside and do a little work, the garden is good for your health all the way around. And eventually, we'll have some wonderful veggies to fill our bellies and help us be healthy that way. Continuing up the garden here, we looked at the chard and the lettuce. And then we have a spot here where we planted some okra as an experiment. And here's one okra plant right here. And this is another heat lover. So probably, but we'll see. It will or it won't. Volunteer tomato. But as we come down here, the rest of this row doesn't have anything planted, but I do see some volunteers. Here's some herbs here. Looks like oregano. Oh, there's another okra plant right there. So I'll pull that big weed see, I just broke that off, and that's okay. If we break them off, they have to regrow. And that's a little plant near it, so we don't want to disturb its roots too much anyway. Oh, and here's another garden buddy. So I'm not sure if you can see her. There she is. Could be a he. Lady beetles are friends in the garden. Here's another okra plant right here, next to that oregano. Well, I'm a little bit brain dead sometimes, so I can't always do two things at once. I'm pulling weeds and trying to talk at the same time. It's not working out very well. But so the okra comes back further than I thought, because there's another one. So be on the lookout for things. And I think the rain kind of washed things around a little bit, so you might not always find them exactly where we planted them. But if it looks like a vegetable plant, leave it be. But if it's something big and singular that you know is a weed, go ahead and pull it. But behind the okra plants, from here to the fence over here, we didn't plant anything. So, and if you root something out of here, don't worry too much. Again, along the fence, pull it all. Here's our green beans. They've started nicely. If you weed around them, weed carefully. They're another one of those plants that really doesn't enjoy having its roots disturbed. But we've got 1, 2, 3 rows of green beans. And I'm just going to have this little weed pile here. Maybe I'll remember to pick it up, maybe I won't. But here's the green beans, all coming along nicely. Here's some dill that came up all on its own. It's going to give us some blossoms. If we don't pick it before it goes to seed, it will seed itself again. And that's okay too. But if you see weeds in among the vegetables, or weeds out growing by themselves, and you know them to be weeds, pull them up. These are our pole beans. And they're gonna run up the hoop here. There's some on both sides. There's some morning glories, I think, on the inside there that'll come up and blossom and be pretty. We have some scarlet runner beans on this other side. We planted some peas. Not sure how well they're going to go, since it's coming into the hot time that they don't really like. But, you know, they will or they won't. Cabbages. We've got some purple ones. There's already starting to head, which is a good thing. When it comes to harvesting some of the vegetables like this, please wait until we let you know that they're ready to harvest. Other things you can tell by eye, and there will be plenty. The summer squash and zucchini are always prolific providers. We've got cucumbers coming here. Hopefully they'll grow up over these little hoops and give us all kinds of cucumbers for our salad. We've got beets going here. If you're going to thin, please take what you thinned home for greens. Wash them well. Put them in your salad. Wilt them. And eat them hot. Whichever you'd like to do. As you know, the greens are the best have all kinds of antioxidants. They're really good for us. My gardening partner, master volunteer Sally Shepherdson, took care of this end of the garden before it started raining so horrendously. It looks very good. Robin's flower pot tomatoes, and oh look, there's a baby all set. So we'll have some tomatoes. If anyone wants to take some soft twine and tie some, oh, there's some more. Look at that. We're going to have some tomatoes. I'm excited now. But there's blossoms all over. We've got a bunch of different varieties. There'll be cherries, there'll be slicers. Ooh, look at there, there's some more. So things are coming in spite of the rain, people. And if we can get the weeds out, that's even better. Because if the weeds aren't taking the nutrients, the plants are getting them. We harvested broccoli the other day. Here's some that's starting to regrow already. We'll get some friends that will come up and get another harvest out of that. Cauliflowers here. Kale down here at the end, along with some more volunteer borage. We didn't plant any of that on purpose, but there it is. It is an edible. I kind of did a little bit of looking online, and these pretty blossoms I saw put into ice cubes. They were gorgeous. I think if you Google, it'll show you some uses for it. It's traditionally a medicinal herb. If you're into that, make sure you talk to your doctor first. We've got carrots and dill coming up in here. Carrots on purpose, dill by accident. And that's okay. Anybody that likes to make dill pickles, when the cucumbers are ready, have at it. Here it is. There'll be all kinds. And here's the carrots. To thin them a little bit. I'm not sure if carrot tops are edible. I don't believe I've ever eaten them. Some of these weeds, there's quotation marks around that, don't you know? There's this one right here. I believe its proper name is purslane. My grandmother called it lamb's quarters. Maybe even pigweed, I'm not sure. She had names for all kinds of things that don't really match up, but that's okay. She was Grammy and I loved her, and we went in the garden and had a good time. Gardening was important. And, so here's the community garden, friends and neighbors. And you are welcome to come weed, to come look. Like I said, I'm in here with my bare feet, earthing. There's nothing planted in this area right here. That volunteer dill came up. That looks like ragweed, so we're going to pull that. Nice allergen that nobody really needs. Along with these other weeds. Oh, there's another one. I'm probably pulling something really valuable, thinking that it's ragweed, but we didn't plant it there, so it can go away. pick up my weeds here that I dropped and made a pile. And we'll go out one of our 3 gates, none of which is locked. It's this one here. The welcoming flamingo. You know, when there's a flamingo, that means there's a party going on. And you're welcome to come party at the garden. But we have the gates. And then if you're up at this end of the garden, or you're coming this way anyway, there's the second root pile here at the end of the garden shed. If you were fortunate enough to know the combination to the lock, you can get into the shed for tools. And if you're with someone like me, who's, if I'm here, is probably going to be here early, you can come into the shed and get tools. Here's the scale to weigh your veggies when you harvest. We have hoe, rake, 4-time diggers. There's a spade, there's shovels, a rake, a spading fork. So we have all